Alrighty everybody, thanks for clicking on this video. James Cards FC here, and today I'm going to be talking about the transfer window and a few different players. I think I have a list of 15 to go over, and basically going through their transfers and how I believe that will affect their card market and how some of my followers believe that will affect their card market as well. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started with this video. Starting off with dumb American opinion alert. These will be my own opinions. Do your own research. I'm just an American with a laptop. If you would like to produce videos like this, very easy to do so. OBS on the computer, microphone right here, $5 headphones, and PowerPoint. Alrighty, so this is the project that I put on my Instagram page about a week ago at this point. I said to rate the following transfers in terms of card market impact. An A to D scale is what I used, A being the best possible transfer and D being the worst possible transfer. So if you didn't participate in the poll, feel free to play along right now. This is the list of 15 players I will be going through in today's video. So if you want to go ahead and pause and fill out on another screen or on your phone, take notes, any of that sort of stuff, these are the players I'll be talking about. Rate them on an A to D scale in terms of how you think that transfer affects their card market. So give you a second to pause the video. And let's go ahead and get into the first one here. Obviously, going to start off with Erling Haaland going to Manchester City. I personally gave this an A transfer. I think this is the best possible transfer that he could get, other than going to like Liverpool or another team like that. I would rate those as A transfers as well. I think this is the best possible transfer for Erling Haaland. So on his market outlook, he gets a big move that's been priced in ever since his Champions League performances with Dortmund. I fear that there's already so much baked into his prices that there's not much room for him to go up based on his performance with City, unless the card market goes into another mania and we get a lot more money pumped into our system, or he literally scores like 70 goals this season. Not sure what he can do to really boost his prices at this point, considering how high those expectations are. As I say here, to defy expectations, he would need to perform at a Ballon d'Or level, and Man City would need to win the Premier League plus the Champions League. So with all that out of the way, if you do want to target Haaland, these are the cards that I personally like. I like Salzburg kit numbered rookies, not the sticker because the sticker is too high population, and Salzburg specifically because that was his first club, and now that he's gone from Dortmund, I don't see much of a connection there for him in terms of his future career. So I do put in the Dortmund on card autos, since those are his on card autos. I think those are good choices as well. And Rada grade early Man City card / inserts, I think that'll be a play as well because he will be tied to Manchester City, at least for the next window of his career. So cards that I personally wouldn't like, anything Dortmund related besides the on-card autos, because I don't know how relevant those will be going forward, and then anything base, because base is becoming more and more seen as the types of cards you don't want to target. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and see how my audience ranked this transfer. And they pretty much agree with me, 54% giving this an A, 32% giving it a B. So let's move on to Aurelian. I won't attempt to pronounce his last name. I've actually never heard anyone pronounce his last name, but we'll go with Aurelian. He plays for Real Madrid now. He transferred from one of the teams in the French division. It just completely blew past my mind right now. I believe it's Monaco. It's transferred from Monaco, and now he's going to play for Real Madrid. I gave this a C rating transfer. So in terms of his market outlook, he's another great young French talent, but he plays the wrong position for hobby relevancy. He plays more of a CDM/CM type role, so not really getting forward with the attack. And he's also stuck behind the ageless trio of Modric, Kroos, and Casemiro, as well as Camavinga. Although based on Real Madrid's first game that they just played, he played in partnership with Camavinga in the midfield, so I wonder if that'll give him some more run. If they're deciding to play him exclusively with Camavinga, he might get some more minutes. If they run lineups with one of the past three plus Camavinga plus Aurelian, I think that could get interesting. But yeah, I do worry about the amount of minutes he's going to get and the position he plays. If you're interested in him, the cards that I'd like personally are, it depends on the 2021-2022 releases, but Obsidian seems like a good start. I think you have a lot of time to wait on him for his hobby relevancy because, like I said, not really sure how much run he's going to get this season, but he's not in the Chrome set, which is a good sign. It means his populations will be a lot lower than most of the guys that we talk about from the 2022-2021 product. So he is an Obsidian. I believe he's also in the Merlin checklist that's been floating around. So he is going to have some releases, but not nearly as many as guys like Gavi, Sesko, and the like. So cards I personally wouldn't like, his stickers or base cards, either that from France or base cards in general. Not a big fan of stickers for Modern and not a big fan of base either. So Let's see how my audience rated this. They gave this transfer mostly A's and B's rating. I think they are more looking at this in terms of a long-term outlook. I do believe in the long term this is a good club for him to land on, but again, in the very short term, not sure where his minutes are going to come from, and I'm concerned specifically about his position. So, moving forward to Darwin Nunez going to Liverpool from Benfica. I gave this an A transfer rating. I think this is one of the best possible transfers that Darwin could have gotten. He has taken the soccer card market by storm over the past 6 months, following solid showings in the Champions League, and now has that dream transfer to Liverpool. Did a whole video on this on the past. Go ahead and check that out. I'll probably leave a link to it down below. The question remains that how much more do his Obsidian rookies have to climb in value? Those are his only hobby-related rookie cards, and it's hard to gauge what's already being priced in. There are less than 500 of these cards total since they're all numbered across a few different parallels, so it's tough to know how much is being priced in and how high that market cap can grow just because he has so few cards. So if you do like Darwin Nunez, and if you really believe in him, I think there's a chance based on pure market cap that his Obsidian rookies might still be undervalued depending on what's being priced in right now. It's just really hard to know when his cards are so low pop. His early Liverpool cards and inserts are probably going to be really important because that's a club people are going to recognize with him going forward. And then 2022 World Cup Prism, I think, is going to be big for him as well since he doesn't really have that standout super mainstream rookie release. I think World Cup Prism could be very appealing for him going forward. And then in terms of cards, I don't personally like his rookie stickers, way too many of them. Same modern rookie sticker problem I have with pretty much every player. There's just going to be way too many. So talking more specifically about the transfer, like I said, this is the best one he could have, at least in my opinion, one of his best transfers because he's going to get a ton of minutes. He's probably going to score a ton of goals, and that is really, really good for his hobby relevancy. He's going to play in the Premier League. He's going to play in the Champions League. So great transfer for Darwin Nunez. The only question is how much more room does he have to grow? Pulling up what my audience says here, they gave this, I believe this is the highest rated transfer of any of them. 90% of the people that were polled gave this an A or a B, with 63% giving it an A. Let's move to Sadio Mane. He is heading to Bayern Munich from Liverpool. I gave this an A rating. I believe this is one that I disagreed with my community on, but I give this an A. So Mane goes from a top club in one of the toughest leagues in the world to a top club that appears to have a cakewalk to a league title, and that being Bayern Munich playing the Bundesliga, at least in the first couple of weeks. And looking at their roster, they appear to be by far the strongest team in that league, so it's their title to lose already. With a clearable World Cup group with Senegal and a strong club season in the making, Mane could be in line for some spotlight over the next few months. I like that Bayern looks poised for a deep Champions League run. I like that Senegal has a pretty easy group in terms of the World Cup, so they can make the knockouts fairly easily based on where they got matched up. So I like both those things for Mane. It gives him lots of opportunity to start, score goals, and feature in the spotlight more than he would have at Liverpool, specifically because I think there's a lot of goals on the table at Bayern that need to be picked up by somebody, and I think Mane has a good chance of picking up a lot of those goals. So for those reasons, I'll go through the cards I like. I like his rookie sticker. I know it's crazy that I'm saying that, but at least right now it seems to be actually extremely difficult to find. So if you can find that, if you live in one of the regions where that sticker got released, finding it raw I think is a good idea, if that's even possible. But yeah, that's really low pop right now, so a raw to grade on that if you could find it I think is a good idea, but more I guess could come to market if he increases his profile over the next few months. The more obvious one and the more safe one, I think, is the 2018 World Cup Prism Parallels. The one I have on the right-hand side of the screen here is the Mojo Parallel, but I would be specifically trying to target things like silvers or low numbers, just because those are the super obvious ones. Cards I would not like would be base, like I've said before, and then Liverpool-centric cards I wouldn't be targeting, because now he's not going to be associated with Liverpool, at least for both the World Cup and the upcoming Champions League season. So I would be focusing either on his super early stuff or his World Cup Prism. And this is how my community rated it. They gave this transfer a mostly B or C rating. I personally think this is an A just from a playing time and potential being the spotlight perspective, but I can understand moving from Liverpool to moving to Bayern isn't exactly a huge transfer in terms of going to a lesser followed club, I guess. So moving on to Richarlison heading to Spurs, I gave this a C rating. So in terms of market outlook, he's fallen very under the radar, but perhaps this could be a key signing for Tottenham this season. His path to minutes is not really known. Minutes for both Spurs and Brazil are huge question marks. Not sure if he's going to feature for Spurs that much in the Champions League or this Premier League season, and not sure if he's going to show for Brazil at the World Cup at all, but If he does have strong showings, he could find himself starting in the World Cup and Champions League matches over the next few months, and obviously that would be huge for his market given that he's still a fairly young player, so he could still generate some hype that way. If you're interested in Richarlison, the cards that I like specifically are 2018 Optic Parallels or 2017 Topps Premier League. I believe that Topps 2017 set is his rookie set, but go ahead and double check me on that. 2018 Optic Parallels are his most obvious mainstream cards to look at, in my opinion. You could also look at his autographs. He has very, very few, so the ones that are out there are sort of expensive based on his market, but he has so few that I think those might be a play. And then I say one of ones or golds might still be very attainable based on the set, and based on the fact that Richarlison really isn't that hot in the market right now, you might be able to get those at some really interesting entry points for him if Richarlison is a guy that you like. Cards I wouldn't like, pretty much anything else. I specifically for guys like this, like Richarlison, where he's not very known or not very hot in the hobby, I would specifically be looking at the most obvious things possible. My audience went ahead and pretty much agreed with me here. Only 8% gave this an A transfer. I believe that is the lowest of any player that I'll be going through today. So not a lot of people thought this was the best possible transfer for Richarlison. I agree with that just because I don't know exactly where the minutes are going to come from and how many he's going to get. But if he does get those minutes, I think this is a really good situation for him to be in. Moving forward to another Brazilian winger, this one is Rafinha. He's going to FC Barcelona. So in terms of market outlook, he's very similar to Richarlison. However, this is dependent on Barcelona's financial issues. I put together this presentation a few days ago before the Rafinha signing was completed and they were all good to play. So prior to that, there was questions if they were going to be able to register him or not, but it looks like everything is in order, at least from Rafinha getting to play perspective. Barcelona's money issues are a whole different episode that I will not be covering because it's really not that fun. But with strong showings, Rafinha could find himself starting in the World Cup and Champions League matches over the next few months. The exact same story as Richarlison, just playing for Barcelona instead of Tottenham. Cards I like specifically are 2020 Optic and 2020 Prism rookie parallels. Also, his autos, he has very few, just like Richarlison, and then one of ones or golds might also still be very attainable, just like Richarlison. And again, like Richarlison, cards I wouldn't like anything else. His true rookie sticker, which is 2016, there's tons of them and they're not very expensive. I think they're $5 to $7 on eBay. I would avoid those. There's just too many, and I don't see a good entry or exit point for that coming up in the future. So my audience gave this mostly an A transfer. A or B covered 60 or so % of the responses given. So I would agree with that. I think this is the best possible transfer for Rafinha, and it's basically up to his performance whether or not he's going to get those features in the Champions League or World Cup matches, but it's all on the table for him as long as he performs. Alrighty, let's move on to Gabriel Jesus for Arsenal. I gave this transfer a rating of B, and again, he has basically the same exact story as Richarlison and Rafinha, although his path to minutes is a lot more obvious because it appears that he will be starting every single game for Arsenal, whereas the other two may or may not be more rotation type players. So with strong showings, I actually copy and pasted this. It should say Gabriel Jesus could find himself starting in the World Cup and in important Premier League matches. Both him and Arsenal have looked very good in the opening week, both in preseason and in the actual first couple weeks of the season. The only reason I do not give this transfer an A is because Gabriel Jesus will not be playing in the Champions League this season because Arsenal didn't qualify for Champions League, but going forward, it looks likely that they'll make Champions League in the next year, so perhaps this later becomes an A transfer, but at least for this season, he's kind of capped by not being able to appear in the Champions League. So cards I like for Gabriel Jesus are his 2017 Topps Chrome parallels and his 2018 Prism World Cup parallels as well. So those are the most obvious early release sets for him, avoiding his Brazilian issues because you have to deal with stickers and high populations and all that kind of stuff. So I'd prefer just to stick to the super obvious ones I list right here. Optic 2018 is also another one, but I think that's on a lower tier than the first two I gave you. Also, like the other Brazilian forwards I mentioned, one of ones or golds might still be very attainable for him. And unlike the other players, I think specifically his new club issues could be extremely key for him because it looks like, at least after the first couple weeks, he's going to be Arsenal's guy for at least the next few years. So if all goes according to plan, his early Arsenal issues could be really big for him as he sort of expands that club and gets them back on the track to being a Champions League club going forward. I could see those being very, very sought after, specifically for Arsenal supporters. Cards I wouldn't like, pretty much anything else. I did mention 2018 Optic might be another good one, but anything else, I think you're getting a little too much into the weeds on Gabriel Jesus, but the better he performs for Arsenal, the more things will become relevant for him. So, my audience here actually looks like they agree with me. They gave this mostly B's or A's in the terms of this transfer. Almost nobody gave it a D. So a very solid transfer for Jesus. And like I said, the only thing holding this back from being an A, in my opinion, is the Champions League performances that he will not have this season. But going forward, I think this is a great transfer for Jesus, and we will see how it plays out in the longer term. So, moving forward to Gianluca Scamacca from West Ham. He moved from the Serie A over to the Premier League, playing for West Ham this season. Nobody in the hobby is really talking about this guy or his transfer, despite the fact that he's a 22 or 23-year-old striker that scores a bunch of goals in at least the Serie A, and he's looked really strong in certain performances. So, I think it's interesting that he's not really talked about that much, but given that he went to West Ham, I can see why it's not all that popular. So, Scamacca will also be absent from the 2022 World Cup, and West Ham, not a highly followed Premier League club. However, with strong performances, Scamacca could line himself up for a move to a bigger Premier League club in the near future. Perhaps he scores 15 or 20 goals this season and then gets a transfer to a team like United or a team like Chelsea in the future. That would be huge for his market, obviously, and that's sort of what you're hoping for with Scamacca here over the next couple years. So, if you're interested in this guy, cards I like would be the 2020 rookie set parallels. He has 3 or 4 different sets, including Contenders Optic and a few others. So I'd look at the parallels from those sets. He's not in any of the super mainstream sets, so his number of rookie cards is a lot less than the typical player, so that's good from that perspective. And I would avoid pretty much anything else because I think you need to stay to the somewhat mainstream sets that he does have. My audience gave this a B or a C rating mostly, and only a 11% A. Like I said, not the worst transfer for him. He really needs to perform at West Ham in order to move him to a bigger Premier League club. But yeah, it's going to be up to his performances from here. Probably not going to get too many headlines playing for West Ham. Moving on to Karim Adeyemi. He's heading to Dortmund, and I think, again, this is one of the best transfers of the window for the card market. I think Dortmund is a perfect location for Karim Adeyemi. His market outlook is kind of interesting. He was a former hobby darling that seems to have lost much of his sparkle when he was banging in goals for Salzburg. A lot of people were really interested in his cards, and he had some really nice returns over a few-month period. And then he transferred to Dortmund, and his market's gone kind of silent. Due to him not playing and a few other guys breaking out. But barring injury, Adeyemi should receive plenty of minutes for Dortmund this season. He's still only 20 years old and has a chance to play some important matches and perhaps find himself in a reserve role for Germany in Qatar. So as long as he doesn't get injured, he's going to be starting, I believe, most games for Dortmund. They're pretty thin at the striker position right now, and he is in a good spot to pick up a lot of those minutes. He's in a good spot to start Champions League matches. So from that perspective, he has a lot of good opportunities to spotlight and score some goals. And expectations for him seem to have hit the reset button, and they're now at a baseline level. I'm not sure what the expectations are for him this season. Not a lot of people are talking about him, so I don't think very much is priced in at this point. So a strong season could propel him back into the hobby's core prospect group. Usually the hobby only really monitors 5 to 10 guys at a time, and he's sort of fallen out of that favor of 5 to 10, but with a really strong season and some strong showings, he could definitely find himself back in that group. So, cards I specifically like for Adeyemi, he has a million different ones, so I would just stick to the super obvious Topps Chrome and Topps Chrome Sapphire parallels, and then if you want to get a little fancy with it, you could go with the 2022 Salzburg on-card autos. Those are a lot harder to find on eBay. They're listed for ridiculous prices, so maybe you could find an auction and get lucky, but that is the type of card that I would be interested in if I was targeting a guy like Adeyemi. Cards that I wouldn't like, specifically the rookie sticker, I think is bad just because there are thousands and thousands of those, and stickers are becoming less and less relevant for modern players, so would avoid those and try and stick to the super obvious stuff for Adeyemi. My audience gave this mostly B's and A's ratings, not very many C's or D's, so I definitely agree with them there. I think this is one of the best outcomes for Adeyemi because he's going to get a lot of minutes, supposedly, assuming his injuries aren't going to be that bad, and he will play in the Champions League, so great move, I think, personally, for Adeyemi. All right, we'll move on to another German striker here. We're going to talk about Timo Werner, and he's going to Leipzig. I give this an A. I think this is the best possible transfer for a guy like Werner. This is the club that he excelled at previously, and it's going to give him all kinds of minutes to start, and he's going to play Champions League matches. So he was a hobby darling back in 2020. He was one of those core group of prospects the core group of 5 to 10 prospects at the time. He was definitely one of them. And then he became a complete bust at Chelsea, and now he's pretty much all but forgotten about. Nobody really talks about him in the hobby at all. So that's actually a good thing for his expectations and his price levels. So his expectations right now are on the floor, but barring injury and terrible performance, he could find himself starting not just in the Champions League, but at the World Cup as well in the knockout round matches, because Germany, besides being in a group of Spain, the rest of their competition is fairly weak, so they have a good chance of getting out. Werner has a good chance of starting, so he is going to have opportunities here in the next few months to really capture some attention, and I like that a lot for a guy that has very good entry point, at least in my opinion, right now. So if you're interested in Timo Werner, these are the cards that I would be looking at. 2018 World Cup Prism Parallels, these are super obvious, and when the hobby was really starting in 2020, these were cards that people were already aware of, and so I think that's a good thing. 2013 Topps Chrome Bundesliga, these are his rookie physical cards. I think those are good options as well, depending on the price you can get them for. I don't think you can raw degrade them given how expensive they are raw, but maybe slabbed they might be a good play. And then one of one's golds and case hits might be very attainable, just based on where his pricing is at currently, so those might be good options as well. Cards that I wouldn't personally like are base prism and optic stuff. I would much rather target the World Cup prism than the optic, and base prism, of course, I don't think is really investable at this point in the market. So my audience actually completely disagreed with me on this one. Only 11% gave this an A. The majority of people gave this a C or a D transfer. I believe this is just people looking at it as from moving from Chelsea to Leipzig is moving from a bigger club to a smaller club, but I look at this more as he's going to get a ton of minutes and he's going to play in the Champions League, and he has a pretty decent shot at starting for Germany as well during the World Cup. So I think this is a really good move for him. Alrighty, moving on to Ryan Gravenberch. He is heading to Bayern Munich. I gave this a C, mostly just because of, again, the position he plays, and more importantly, I don't know where his minutes are going to come from this season and maybe even into the following seasons. So he was one of the original prospect hobby darlings back in 2020 and 2021. A lot of people were talking about him, but I think people didn't actually know what position he played. As I say here, his market lost all its hype after people discovered what kind of a player he actually is. He's not really a forward attacking midfield player. He's more of a center defensive mid. So once people figured that out, they became a lot less interested in his cards, and his market really hasn't recovered much since then. I will say that expectations appear to be pretty low, and the hobby is aware of his name. Both are usually good recipes for price increases if he does have good performances. However, his path to minutes at Bayern is murky. I believe he played 10 minutes in the most recent match. I just don't know where he's going to feature in that midfield. There's too many young players. There's too many old players. Bayern just has a ton of talent. Perhaps when they start running away with the league and giving more younger players an opportunity, he does some things then. But in terms of Champions League matches, I don't know where he's going to factor in. If you are interested in Gravenberch, the cards I like specifically are the 2020-2021 Topps Chrome and Sapphire parallels. He has a million different cards, so I would try and just stick to the super mainstream obvious ones. Cards I wouldn't like, base, and the less popular 2020 and 2021 sets. My audience gave this A's and B's mostly, with some C's as well. Actually, mostly B's and C's, and then some A's and D's. So, mostly agreeing with my audience on this one. I do like the transfer from a club perspective, but again, the minutes and the position he plays, I'm just not sure that's going to be all too great for his market, at least in this current season. Maybe Bayern gives him some minutes, and going into the next season, he's a part of the starting 11. I think that'd be a lot better for his market, but in the current time, I'm not too excited about this move. Alrighty, let's move to one that I am excited about. This is Brenden Aaronson going to Leeds. I think this is an A transfer. This is the best possible transfer I think that Brenden Aaronson could have gotten. He is another young U.S. men's national team forward receiving some hype with recent strong form, and he has all but guaranteed starters minutes and the chance to spotlight against some of the most popular clubs in the world. So he's going to get 90 minutes a game against the likes of Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal every single week, and I think that's great for his market. Even if he's not going to be playing in Champions League, there's an American that is playing significant minutes in the Premier League, and that always has the chance to generate some hype. So I also say here that Leeds could quickly capture the American audience, and Aaronson has an outside chance at featuring for the United States men's national team in Qatar. He's going to be on the team. It's just a matter of if he's in the 11 or not. He's definitely going to be a rotation player, but with really strong performances at Leeds, there's an outside chance that he could feature in the starting 11 as well. So With all that being said, the cards that I personally like for Brenden Aaronson are the MLS issues that he has with, I believe it's Philadelphia Union was his MLS club. So that was his first club. I'd be most interested in those because I would consider those his main rookies. I think Leeds United case hits or low-numbered cards when they come out could be big for him. They're not out yet, and they might not be out for a long time given Panini's production delays, but I think those could be interesting for his market because of the Leeds connection for the American market. And then 2022 World Cup Prism could be really key for him because he doesn't really have that many standout rookie options. He's in the Merlin set, but he's in the Salzburg kit. The MLS stuff is hit or miss with him, so I think 2022 World Cup Prism could be pretty big. Cards I wouldn't like specifically are the Salzburg cards because I don't know why you would favor that over the MLS stuff when the MLS was a earlier issue for him, as well as the fact that now Salzburg's not going to be relevant at all for him because he's moved to Leeds. So I personally would avoid those, but that's just my personal opinion. My audience mostly agreed with me here. 33% chose an A-rated transfer, 35% gave it a B, and then the rest fill out the C and the D. So overall, a very exciting transfer for Brenden Aaronson. Alrighty, moving right along here with CDK, Charles de Ketelaere, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, but I'll just use CDK as the abbreviation. He's heading to AC Milan, and I gave this a C rating. So he is a young Belgian midfielder with great performances in the Belgian league and got his big move to AC Milan. Unfortunately, Serie A is the least followed of the 5 major leagues in the hobby, at least in our current market structure, and he'll need a strong Champions League run of performances in order to move his market, since people don't really pay attention to Serie A's action week over week, and he doesn't appear to be a factor in the Belgium Qatar starting 11 or rotation at this point, but that could change if he has some strong performances. Maybe he could find himself in the rotation for the World Cup, but I personally don't see that in his future right now. If you are interested in CDK, maybe this is a good time to get in, considering I don't find this transfer all that exciting, but you have the 2020-2021 Topps Chrome and Sapphire parallels. He's in a million different sets. These are the most mainstream, so I would personally be targeting those. And then for selling, buy and sell, interesting. Is that how I labeled the last ones? No, I said cards I like and cards I wouldn't like. So I changed the formatting on this one for some reason, but yeah, I wouldn't like base, and I wouldn't like the less popular 2020 and 2021 sets. My audience somewhat disagreed with me here. Most of them gave it a B transfer and then followed by C and A. So I guess mid-tier level of hype going on for CDK here. I'm personally worried about the fact that he plays in Serie A and the fact that he might not get any minutes for Belgium. So I'm not sure how many chances he's really going to have to star, but I do think he's a very, very good young player, and his performance in the Belgian league shows that. So maybe if he gets forgotten about and going into next year he has a place in the 11, that might be a better entry point. But yeah, very promising player, just not sure where the minutes are going to come from. Then we move on to Benjamin Sesko. This guy is one of the most popular guys in current products, and I personally think if you listen to the podcast, you've already gotten these thoughts from me. I think this is the worst possible transfer for him, going to Leipzig in 2023. So it's been announced that Sesko will be transferring to Leipzig in 2023. He's going to stay this full season at Salzburg and then transfer to Leipzig. So I personally don't like this move from a card perspective because this season at Salzburg is now meaningless since his transfer to Leipzig is confirmed in 2023. People can't really FOMO into buying him because they already know he's transferring to Leipzig and he's not rumored to be transferring to United or Chelsea or Barcelona or insert any big name club. He's just going to Leipzig. I don't think that's all that exciting for the hobby, so I'm concerned about the fact that this year is kind of a waste for his market, and then maybe it gets back on in 2023 at Leipzig. However, Leipzig's not really a hobby-relevant club. If you look at a guy like Nkunku, who had one of the best seasons of any player in Europe this past season, he's like 23 or 24 years old, and his Chrome Sapphire cards are less than $5, so not a lot of hype for Nkunku. So if Sesko goes there and does the same thing Nkunku is doing, that would be a dream scenario, at least in my opinion, but I don't know if that's going to generate enough hype to really move his prices, especially considering how far away he is from another big move besides Leipzig. And what really moves the market on these guys is those potentials for big moves. So I believe this has set his market on hold for the next 2 or 3 seasons, at least in my opinion. I think you don't need to rush out to buy him right now, but if you're in the market for Sesko, I would just give it a few months, maybe even give it a year, let the prices come back down to earth, because they're really, really high right now, in my opinion, for a guy that doesn't really have some obvious places to gain hype throughout the next 2 years consistently. If you are interested in Sesko, and I personally like Sesko, I just don't think now's the best time. 2021 and 2022 Topps Chrome and Sapphire parallels I think are great targets, but like I say here, you can probably wait to buy in for cheaper and wait for cheaper grading in the future. I think there's low fear of missing out potential right now on Sesko for the reasons that I've discussed previously. I also like his 2021-2022 Salzburg team set on card autos. I think those are going to be the ultimate grails for his market going forward, considering those are going to be his only on-card autos. And if you look at his auto in this on-card set, it's very, very different from the auto that he currently has. This one is much more defined. The stickers that he does, he literally just writes the cursive S and he's done with it. So I think these are really great. I think these will be the grails for his market going forward, but I think they're pretty expensive right now for a guy that's just going to be playing at Salzburg and Leipzig for the near future. Cards that I wouldn't like are stickers, base, and less popular 2021-2022 sets for all the reasons that I've discussed for some of the other players. This is the one that I disagreed most with my audience here. Only 8% of my audience agreed with me in terms of this being the worst possible transfer for Sesko. I think there's just a lot of hype on this guy in general right now, but the issue that I have is I don't know what's going to keep that hype going for the next year or 2 years while we wait for him to get that even bigger transfer to an even bigger club. So nothing against the player. I think it's a great move for his potential and his talent. I really like the talent. I just don't know if the hype is going to be able to sustain 2 years now of clubs that aren't really followed for the hobby. And that will move us to our final player here, who is Renato Sanches, and he is going to PSG. I think this is an A transfer. I think this is the best possible transfer for Renato Sanches and his market. So, he's a former Golden Boy winner that has now been reunited with the manager that helped him rediscover his form. So the manager that helped him at Lille is now the manager at PSG. So that is a good sign in terms of both his performance and the fact that he's probably going to get some minutes at PSG because the manager really trusts him. He also has an outside chance for featuring for PSG in the Champions League for the reasons I stated, and Portugal and Qatar if he's really in his form, and maybe he could crack a way into that rotation. That's less clear than with PSG. I think with PSG, he has a really good chance at getting some starters minutes just based on the manager connection, but maybe for Portugal, he has a shot as well, depending on how good his form is going into Qatar. He also has name recognition from his former Wonderkid status, and he's been a FIFA beast for the past 3 or 4 years, so the name is known by a lot of the people in the hobby, and that's always a really good thing in terms of being able to generate hype. Cards I'd like for him, he has a lot of different issues, but not really anything that is looked at as a super mainstream rookie. I think 2016 Select Parallels are the most rookie-like cards that he has, so I'd check those out. And then 1/1's golds, case hits, on-card autos might be very attainable as well. I know he has National Treasures on-card autos with patches. He has 2017 Select on-card autos. So you have a variety of different case-type hits for him that I think could be interesting if he does perform really well. And cards that I wouldn't like specifically are pretty much anything else, because the more limited the player is, the more limited his options are in the market that will be valuable. So I would just be targeting these super obvious things. And then my audience looks like they don't agree with me necessarily on this one. They have this as a B or C rated transfer, but for the reasons I mentioned, he's getting to connect with a manager that he performed really well with, and he's going to feature for PSG in the Champions League potentially. I think this is a great move for him, and I'm very bullish on Renato Sanches' market based on this move. So that will go ahead and conclude today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you want to see more of this. There's obviously more and more transfers I could talk about, so maybe I could take some time to do another one. Follow me on Instagram if you want to take part in these sort of polling activities. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video.